The shipping yards look eerily still. Cranes idle, stacks of containers waiting in silence. There's no blockade, no bans, no gates locked shut. And yet, the economy is feeling the tremors. In April 2025, U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports skyrocketed to 145%. Then, in mid-May, they dropped to 30% for a 90-day pause. What should have calmed the market instead triggered a tariff whiplash across the global supply chain. Importers rushed orders, carriers scrambled schedules, and ports from coast to coast were thrown off balance. Why can one policy shift send shockwaves through every link of America's trade lifeline? Let's break it down. The domino effect. Why shipments are slowing. When the U.S. slashed tariffs from 145% to 30% for a 90-day pause, the reaction in China was immediate. Bookings from Chinese ports to the United States exploded, up an astonishing 277% in just 1 week. Suddenly, vessel space became a premium commodity. Contract cargo was locked in first, leaving smaller shippers fighting for any remaining slots. Spot rates soared, and anyone booking late paid steep premiums just to secure space. But that was only the first domino to fall. Carriers began canceling scheduled departures, known as blank sailings, or bunching multiple routes into fewer voyages. This created clustered arrivals, cargo ships showing up in waves instead of a steady stream. Ports struggled to unload quickly, and container yards swelled with delayed freight. On land, the problems multiplied. A shortage of chassis, the trailers used to move containers, left import boxes sitting idle. Rail yards backed up, trucking schedules fell apart, and delivery windows became unpredictable. Even well-organized inland hubs couldn't keep up with the uneven flow. Then came the east-west split. To avoid West Coast congestion and unreliable schedules, some importers diverted cargo to East Coast ports. Others rerouted entirely, sending shipments through European gateways before crossing the Atlantic. These detours added days, even weeks, to transit times. Seasonal goods risked missing their market windows, forcing retailers to delay promotions or cut back on product lines. Manufacturers relying on just-in-time delivery saw assembly lines slow or stop. The result? A fragile, disjointed supply chain where one policy change rippled from factory floors in Asia to store shelves in America. And now, the question becomes clear. Which 7 ports are facing the heaviest disruptions right now? Number 7. Newark, Elizabeth. At the heart of the Port of New York and New Jersey, Newark Elizabeth is the largest container gateway on the U.S. East Coast. In May 2025, imports from China through this port fell sharply, reflecting the immediate impact of tariff-driven uncertainty. Electronics distributors across the Northeast are reporting longer lead times for devices and critical components. Automotive dealers are seeing delays in both new vehicle arrivals and replacement parts. Pharmaceutical shipments, while prioritized, are still facing occasional bottlenecks at customs and distribution hubs. Fewer sailings mean less predictable scheduling, which complicates inventory management for regional warehouses. Logistics providers warn that if tariffs snap back to 145% after the 90-day pause, cargo volumes could shrink even further. That scenario could push freight rates higher on East Coast lanes, especially into densely populated urban markets. Retailers are already preparing for potential price increases ahead of the holiday season. As one of the most critical trade arteries for the Northeast, Newark, Elizabeth is a key barometer for how U.S. policy shifts ripple through the economy. Number 6. YANTIAN. YANTIAN, located in Shenzhen, is one of China's busiest deepwater ports and a critical launch point for U.S.-bound cargo. When the U.S. announced its 90-day tariff pause in mid-May 2025, bookings to the United States surged by an astonishing 277% in just the first week. This sudden wave of demand overwhelmed available vessel capacity almost instantly. Carriers prioritized contract cargo, leaving many smaller shippers scrambling for space at steep spot premiums. The surge created congestion at YANTIAN's terminals, with truck queues growing longer and container handling slowing down. Even minor weather delays began rippling through the schedule, compounding the backlog. By the time these ships reached the U.S. West Coast, ports were hit with a freight bulge, clustered arrivals instead of a steady flow. Chassis shortages inland made it harder to move containers out quickly, especially for just-in-time retail and electronics shipments. As a result, some seasonal products missed key sale windows, forcing retailers to adjust promotions or cut stock. If tariffs jumped back to 145% after the pause, YANTIAN could see another booking rush followed by a sharp slowdown, embedding higher costs and delays into U.S. supply chains for months to come. Number 5. SAVANNAH. The Port of Savannah is the fastest-growing container gateway on the U.S. East Coast and a key hub for retail, manufacturing, and agricultural imports. In fiscal year 2025, it moved 5.7 million 20-foot equivalent units, an 8.6% increase from the previous year, fueled largely by aggressive front-loading ahead of higher tariffs. March through May each topped 500,000 TEUs, with importers rushing to beat the April 145% tariff spike. However, by June 2025, the momentum cooled sharply, with monthly throughput dropping about 9.6% year-over-year. Congestion began building in inland rail yards, and chassis shortages slowed container transfers to distribution centers. Big-box retailers in Georgia and neighboring states reported multi-day delays for restocking key items. Automotive plants experienced shipment gaps for critical components, disrupting production schedules. Some inbound goods, including appliances and engine modules, sat idle at rail depots awaiting onward transport. The risk for Savannah is a rapid swing in demand, overstaffing and underutilized warehouses when volumes fall, then strain when they spike again. If tariffs return to 145% after the pause, another surge could hit, repeating the same pressure on the system. Number 4. Seattle-Tacoma. The Northwest Seaport Alliance, which combines the ports of Seattle and Tacoma, is a vital gateway for trade between Asia and the U.S. Pacific Northwest. In June 2025, loaded imports plunged 27.3% year-over-year, one of the steepest declines among major U.S. ports. Faced with tariff uncertainty and service cuts, many importers chose to reroute cargo to East Coast ports in search of more reliable schedules. This diversion has left regional trucking companies with fewer long-haul loads, reducing driver hours and revenue. Rail operators are running lighter trains as import volumes shrink, disrupting efficiency and increasing per-unit transport costs. Warehouse operators near the ports are dealing with uneven inventory flows, complicating labor and space planning. The aerospace sector, a cornerstone of the Pacific Northwest economy, is feeling the pinch from delayed component shipments. Consumer goods distributors are also reporting slower product turnover, impacting retail availability. With fewer vessel calls, the risk of sudden surges or long gaps in arrivals remains high. Without a sustained rebound in bookings, the NWSA could face a prolonged period of reduced throughput well into late 2025. Number 3. OAKLAND. The Port of Oakland is a critical West Coast hub for U.S. agricultural exports, especially perishable and refrigerated goods bound for Asia. In June 2025, Vessel calls dropped noticeably, reducing the number of available slots for outbound shipments. For exporters of California's fresh produce, wine, and refrigerated meats, this decline has created a serious logistical challenge. Refrigerated containers, or reefers, are in especially high demand but limited supply, driving up rental and transport costs. With fewer sailings, time-sensitive cargo faces a greater risk of spoilage if it misses a scheduled departure. Some exporters have been forced to pay higher rates to secure guaranteed space, cutting into already tight profit margins. Import flows through Oakland have also softened, creating an imbalance between inbound and outbound capacity. This mismatch further complicates scheduling for carriers and logistics providers. Agricultural producers are warning that continued service cuts could harm long-term relationships with overseas buyers. Unless trade conditions stabilize and vessel frequency improves, Oakland's role as a reliable export gateway for U.S. farm goods could be under serious pressure in the months ahead. Number 2. Long Beach. The Port of Long Beach, paired with Los Angeles, forms the busiest container complex in the United States. After setting a record in April 2025, total volumes in May fell 8.2% year-over-year as the 145% tariff spike on Chinese imports forced many companies to pause or cancel orders. With fewer vessel calls, the turnover of empty containers slowed, creating an equipment imbalance across key trade lanes. This shortage made it difficult to reposition containers for the next shipment, especially for inland destinations. Distribution centers in California's Inland Empire, a major logistics hub for the West, reported uneven arrivals and unpredictable delivery schedules. Some retailers delayed restocking, while manufacturers postponed production runs until supplies stabilized. Trucking operations faced idle time waiting for containers to become available, adding cost and inefficiency to the supply chain. Even after the 90-day tariff pause reduced duties to 30%, shippers remained cautious, wary of another sudden policy shift. Port officials expect only gradual recovery over the summer, warning that throughput may not return to pre-April levels without more stable trade conditions. Long Beach's experience underscores how even world-class infrastructure can't fully shield a port from global policy whiplash. Number 1. Los Angeles. The Port of Los Angeles is the busiest container gateway in the United States and a critical artery for trans-Pacific trade. In May 2025, loaded imports fell 9% year-over-year, while exports slipped 5%, following the sharp tariff hike on Chinese goods. Carriers responded by cutting the number of sailings, creating longer gaps between vessel arrivals and disrupting established schedules. Some importers, unwilling to risk delays, shifted high-priority shipments, such as automotive components and electronics, to costly air freight. Automakers reported late deliveries of braking systems, sensors, and other key parts, forcing production adjustments. Electronics manufacturers faced shortages of motherboards, chips, and display panels, pushing back product launches. Retailers missed seasonal sales windows for certain goods, reducing potential revenue. The slowdown in vessel traffic also affected trucking and warehousing operations, with fluctuating inventory levels making staffing unpredictable. Even with the 90-day tariff pause lowering duties to 30%, volumes have yet to rebound to pre-April levels. Port executives warn that uncertainty over future trade policy continues to keep shippers in a holding pattern, slowing Los Angeles's path to recovery. Industries and sectors. Feeling the impact first. Some industries are more vulnerable than others when port volumes drop, and they're already feeling the pressure. In the automotive sector, just-in-time manufacturing leaves little room for error. Delays in receiving imported components, from braking systems to engine modules, can halt entire assembly lines. Automakers are reporting postponed production runs and slower rollout of new models as they wait for parts stuck in transit. The electronics industry faces similar challenges. Key components like microchips, motherboards, and display panels are sourced primarily from Asia, and domestic substitutes are limited. When shipments arrive late or in inconsistent batches, production schedules slip and product launches are delayed. For companies aiming to hit specific sales windows, such as back-to-school or holiday seasons, even a short delay can mean lost market share. Retail is also feeling the squeeze. Big box stores and specialty retailers alike are trimming their product assortments, cutting SKUs to focus on core inventory they can reliably stock. Seasonal promotions are being pushed back or scaled down, as merchandise arrives too late to match planned marketing campaigns. In some cases, products intended for one season end up being sold at heavy discounts in the next, eroding profit margins. These ripple effects extend beyond corporate profits. They impact jobs, consumer choice, and overall economic momentum. With supply chains, this fragile one policy shift can cascade across industries in weeks. And that raises the next big question. With conditions already this tight, what will the final quarter of 2025 look like? Q4 2025. 3 possible scenarios. As we head into the final quarter of 2025, the outlook for U.S. ports and supply chains could go in very different directions. In the base case, vessel schedules remain thin, with blank sailings still a regular feature. Freight rates stay elevated compared to 2024, as carriers keep capacity tight to protect margins. Import flows stabilize somewhat, but the system remains vulnerable to even minor disruptions. In the downside scenario, the 90-day tariff pause ends without renewal, sending duties back to 145%. Shippers rush to book space before costs escalate further, triggering another wave of congestion. Container slots become scarce, spot rates surge, and inland logistics choke under renewed pressure. This would hit seasonal inventory hard, with shortages likely during peak holiday shopping. The upside scenario hinges on extending the reduced 30% tariff rate through the end of the year. With more predictable costs, importers can plan shipments evenly, smoothing port workloads and reducing inland bottlenecks. Retailers and manufacturers would have a chance to rebuild inventory ahead of the holiday season, protecting sales and avoiding deep discounts. Which of these scenarios plays out will depend on political decisions in the coming weeks and the global market's ability to adapt. This year's trade disruption leaves us with 3 clear takeaways. First, a single policy shift can trigger shockwaves across the entire global supply chain. Second, the East-West split is reshaping cargo flows in ways that may outlast the current tariff pause. Third, YANTIAN remains a critical switch, capable of amplifying or easing pressure on U.S. ports. So, what do you think? Is this just temporary turbulence, or the early sign of a much larger economic shock? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and tell us what's happening in your local market. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth updates.